Are you in the midst of putting in a Holley sniper? Are you thinking about putting in the Holley sniper? I have 5 tips that will help it go smooth. So let's knock this out. Number 1, let's talk about the unit itself. The Sniper EFI. The model number is 550510. Available in 3 colors. You can get it in shiny silver. You can get it in a satin black. It's also available in a gold. Each one of these supports 650 horsepower. It looks very similar to a 4-barrel carburetor. You have 4 barrels, throttle bodies. Each one of those has a fuel injector. And the fuel injector is rated at 100 pounds an hour for fuel flow. They're compatible with any ignition system you have. If you have, Hyperspark, or if you have MSDS, it can work with anything. These are very simple units if you follow the instructions and do it right. Fuel pump requirements, that's going to be the biggest hurdle. You have 3 choices. You can buy a kit, which comes with a fuel pump and hose and the whole 9 yards. You can buy a Holley OEM in-tank fuel pump that you can put in your existing tank, or you can buy an actual gas tank itself that has a submersible pump in it. Here's points about each one of them. The OEM in-tank fuel pump that Holley sells, we have one on the Cutlass. It looks a lot like the fuel sending unit you pull out, except it has a bigger sock to it and it has a fuel pump on it. It puts in the very same manner. It's a little tight, but it will fit in, and it has the same type of seal on it. It's got the rubber O-ring and the locking color. You got 3 wire connection. 1 wire is for the fuel sending unit, then you have a hot, and then you have a ground. Number 1 caution with this, the ground has got to be clean. Electronics do not like shaky grounds. Not an exhaust clamp, not a rusty bolt to the frame. I mean, if you're going to bolt it to the frame, and that's what you should do, you clean it up, you be bare metal, and you have a good connection to it. It's got to be clean, or you're going to have problems. Number 2, the external fuel pump. I have this on the Cougar, okay? It came with the kit. They give you a pump, a pre-filter, and a post-filter, all right? Along with like 25 feet of hose and the clamps, and these are all pressure rated because you're moving, for a traditional carburetor, you're roughly 6 pounds of pressure, and with EFI, you're any place between 40 and 65 if you want it to run. Ideally, you want to be at 60 pounds. The external fuel pump wants to be, it's a pusher pump. It's not designed to pull big, long, high distances. And this can be a problem because they want it mounted at bottom of the fuel tank level. All right, so it doesn't have to pull that much. That pump is not designed. It's designed to push, and they call it a pusher, and they say so in the instructions. This creates a problem for my Cougar. The best I can do is to put it on the side of a frame, and it's still about 2 inches higher than the base of the fuel tank. Okay, but so far, fingers crossed, I'm getting 60 pounds of pressure, and it's working out. I did change the way my fuel line was routed over the angle to try to minimize that pull on the pump itself. In my existing unit, the original Cougar Mustang, same difference, the fuel pickup comes straight out of the gas tank and goes immediately straight up, okay? Well, this is all great when you're dealing with 6 pounds of pressure in a non-electronic pump, the more suction. But in the case of an electronic pusher pump, that immediate 90-degree bend is the same thing as adding 6 feet of hose. So you may want to look at that. Number 3 option is Holley makes an entire tank with a submersible pump, okay? And then let's say the Mustang's case, it's right in the center of the trunk is where the pump fittings and the output tubes come out, along with the fuel sending unit, the wire. Let's go into wiring. Computers like clean electricity and clean grounds. They do not want to be spliced into the fuse block That's not going to work. If you can get it to work, you're lucky and you're on borrowed time. And Holley will tell you this in the instructions 5 times. Read and pay attention. Clean electricity means straight to the battery, okay? And in my case, I put the battery in the trunk, so I purposely ran an 8-gauge wire all the way to the firewall, and then used a distribution block that would be used in, let's say, stereos. And then I went from 12 gauge straight to the sniper unit itself. Ground, I did the same thing. I went from the battery with a double aught gauge all the way up to the right by the engine, grounded it to the frame, grounded another strap to the block, and then I took a wire, and from that junction to the block and to the frame from the battery, I ran my ground to the sniper unit. It's as ground can get, but that has never been an issue, and if you try to cut a corner, it will bite you in the ass. Another warning on wires: you get a wiring harness, 10-pin, I do believe. And it, depending on what ignition system you have and how many fans you have and how you want to wire things, you may not use all 10 wires. You may only use 6 of them, okay? Do not, now I repeat, do not cut off the excess wires until everything is done. The last thing you do, then you can weed it down and tidy it up. Don't do it right off the bat. I've made that mistake, and I was scared to death that I'd screwed myself and be, something I'd have to order from China, and that would not be good, especially in the midst of COVID. I called Summit. They had 20 in stock. So I'm not the only person to make that mistake, all right? I'm just saying, why have to spend extra 40 bucks? Don't do it. Take your time, do it right, make sure your connections, continuity test your connections. Don't take anything for granted. Okay, before I go on to the last point, I want to just mention, if you like what you're seeing, like and subscribe, okay? It doesn't cost you a thing, it means the world to us. And if you got a partner in crime, somebody going to help you out, share the video, okay? 2 eyes are better than 1. Last subject I want to talk about is O2 sensors. Even in Holley's video, and I've linked every Holley video that would cover anything I've talked about is linked below, okay? And in anything I've shown you, some connectors and whatever, are linked below. Because you need this information instead of having to search for it. Bingo, you got one spot to find it. O2 sensors. And this isn't covered well in Holley's video. And this is why I'm going to make a real point on it, because I've been down this road and I've learned the hard way. You got one side of the exhaust, whether it's driver's or passenger side, you got 4 tubes that come down to a collection point. This is the key, collection point. And Holley in the instruction says from the collector, go 4 to 8 inches past it, and that's where you place the O2 sensor. They should say collection point, because in my mind I thought they meant collection flange, which is like 3 or 4 bolts. It's depending on what exhaust system you have. But no, they mean the collection point. So where those pipes go together, you want to be like 4 or 6 inches past that. And you want to be in one of 2 places. You want to be at 11 o'clock or you want to be at 1 o'clock. If you consider the collection pipe a clock where you have noon and 6, and then you have 3 and 9, okay? So you want to be at 11 or 1. And the reason behind this is moisture gets in the exhaust system, and moisture builds up on the O2 sensor. It'll corrode it, it'll screw up the sensor. $100 for a new sensor. So what you want is so that the moisture drips down off of it. You could probably even do, high noon, and as long as it drips down, you'll be okay. So think about that. I know depending on how your exhaust system is, or your header, how easy they are to take off, or how long the collector is, that's an obstacle, okay? You're just going to have to make do. You're going to have to figure it out. But I want to make sure that you understand from the collection point, go 4 to 6 inches past that, you should be able to get a good reading. Too far, you're going to pick up too much oxygen, and depending on how long your exhaust system is. Too close, you're just going to be reading one cylinder and not the entire bank of cylinders, okay? So that's the key point. In closing, read instructions. Read them 3, 4 times. And if somebody's helping you, have them read them, okay? Take nothing for granted. If you do it right, and if you do the connections and you don't half-ass it, you're going to be okay. It's going to crank up, it's going to run good. When you go to start the car, 2 seconds before you turn that key. You need that bump shot. Bingo. The other settings like IAC and whatever, minor. They're really not hard to set. And you'll have a good system that'll start in any weather, in any heat, in any cold, and it'll run good and you get better fuel mileage. Okay? So I love the system. It's just you have to follow the rules. And if you do that, you're going to be in good shape. So y'all be good, take care, and I'll see you next time.